everybody. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for spending your Friday with us. If this is your first time here, hello. My name is Patricia. I am typically the producer behind the scenes, but today you get to see my face. And that means we have Aaron behind the scenes today answering any comments and questions you may have, not just for MyCC, but for our guest. And this is, of course, our Get Into IT show where we do just that. We get into IT. We get into it. So welcome, Charlie. We have had Charlie Baumann, who is a senior technical recruiter at VanderHowen. Am I saying that correctly?
You got it, yeah.
And you're also the host of Getting Hired in Tech with Charlie Baumann. I love that. That's such a great title. We've had you on the show a couple months ago, and we had a great chat centered around, helping people navigate the job search process, which, as we know, can sometimes be a little frustrating. So, Charlie, thank you so much again for joining us. We love having you on the show. And again, if you guys have any questions for Charlie, please put them in the comments. But yeah, thank you. Welcome. Happy Friday. You excited for the weekend?
So happy to be here. On the East Coast, you guys are almost absolutely to the weekend, and I'm maybe 8 hours away myself. But and I do have a podcast, so thank you for bringing that up about getting hired in tech. And one of the dedicated episodes is how to identify a good recruiter and utilize them to your best advantage. We'll probably cover some of the similar material here, but it's on Spotify, and I think Patricia, you'll be sending out my info later. So yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, of course we will. Yeah, if you guys again have any questions for Charlie now or even after the show, if you're seeing this live, great. If you're not, we do keep these up on all of our social channels for you to watch whenever. And even if you still have questions, we will see them after the fact. So please put them in the comments there. But again, yes, thank you. Where you're on the West Coast or where? I can't remember where you're.
Yeah, I'm in Portland, Oregon. Yeah, Pacific Northwest. Yeah.
I've always wanted to go there. I'm so jealous. Yeah. Dang. So it's on my list. It's on my list of places. We'll get there. Get there. So a quick reminder, Charlie, you have spent nearly 15 years, is that right, in progressive roles in the recruiting industry, and you are currently, the senior technical recruiter at VanderHowen, where you help people get into tech. 15 years, that's pretty remarkable. Is that something that you kind of always were? So
No,
it's a random question outside of things, but
yeah, I would say that very few people begin any sort of education or early upbringing thinking that they're going to be a recruiter. I didn't know it existed. Helping hire for various companies is really fun. And of those, I guess almost 15 years now, most of it's been in tech. So I think I'm glad to be here for this audience and this platform.
Love it. Thank you. So that's something you aspire at like the age of 5, right? You're either astronaut or a recruiter, right? Is that how it goes? And
there's not a specific major. So it's just ability to connect with people and listen and study job market trends. And It's not rocket science.
Well, listen, I don't know too much about it, so I'm ready to get into this today, and I'm sure people in our audience, even if they feel like they know a lot about it, you're still going to give some great insight. So again, thank you so much. And to kick things off, let's just go ahead and start with, how do people even find a recruiter if they're inclined to go on that search route? And I guess on top of that, like, where's the place to start?
So I think just right on LinkedIn. It's a great question. And I just think right on LinkedIn, and I would just start in your local footprint you could type in the keyword tech or technical recruiter in your city or state or maybe region, and find people that come up quickly that with close degree of connection on LinkedIn that maybe have some positive reviews. So that maybe there can be some comfort and some trust factor heading into a reach out. But that's first and foremost where I would start. Many recruiters have now transitioned to hiring nationally, which I also do. So we're in 45 states. We can hire for that many states. So, but I would just start with LinkedIn. I think it's the easiest, and we're all going to have recruiters will all have LinkedIn active profiles. So.
I actually didn't even realize that this was like a geographical or like a regional thing. Like, is it typical for you to have to find things specifically in your area because of networking or because of people that they may know, or is that just the safest bet? But now you're saying you've expanded it a little bit.
I think your best bet is finding someone somewhat regional, because they're probably the ones that have met in person and done lunches and coffees and maybe happy hours with the hiring managing team. And so then maybe your odds are best with someone more regional. But I think in the last couple years, the national recruitment can be just as effective.
Interesting. I didn't
Hmm.
even realize it. Networking. Listen, if you guys follow us on our social pages, I've talked a lot about networking lately with some of the article reviews that I do, and that just seems to always be the common denominator with things is networking, networking, networking. It doesn't matter how many resumes you've sent out. It doesn't matter who you've spoken to. I mean, it's got to be networking. It's got to be the people that you've connected with. So I thank you for that, for the plug there.
Yeah.
So whenever they connect with you on LinkedIn, how should a candidate prepare for that kind of introductory meeting with you?
So Patricia, I just think that having your updated resume that's been dusted off, that you're ready to speak to, even if the recruiter is the intermediary kind of screening you, you're not getting formally interviewed, but you should be ready to talk about what you're good at and what your career vision and goals and what you're good at. And also when you're dusting off a resume, you should also dust off a LinkedIn and not ignore your LinkedIn profile, because hiring managers, as soon as we start presenting our applicants, the second click is on their LinkedIn. So and maybe researching that recruiter specifically and maybe their company and what their specialties are.
Right. So I'm glad you mentioned resume. That's one of my future questions, but I'll go ahead and bring it up. When you say dusting off the resume, does that mean keep it as is, or is that something that you need to refresh? And I guess what my other question was, what else needs adjusting? But you're saying LinkedIn as well. So is that something we need to adjust accordingly, or is that something you're ready to look at as is and make adjustments as we go?
Yeah, you can just roll in, quote, off the virtual street, if you will, with whatever resume if you don't have time to prepare something. Because sometimes I'll contact someone about a job I'm recruiting for a client, and that just there would be no time to actually update it before we talk our first interaction. It's not vital. It's just preferred.
Right.
I'll hear back from people. I haven't really made the resume a priority because I haven't been in the job search for a while, but I know I need to get to it. So there's no better time to start than now. And then, yes, someone will have their own default copy, and then we're going to make tweaks to it. By the way, another episode, I think it might even be my very first podcast episode, is tailoring a resume, because it's the absolute most vital first impression if they don't know you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you for the segue yet again. Let's say, for example, I'm a candidate, right? And I've done what you've said I need to do with my resume and my LinkedIn. I've updated stuff, but how do I prepare for the conversation when there could be a couple of concerns, and one of them being a gap in work history? What is the questions I guess I could prepare for and be ready to answer, and also questions I have for you, I guess, just what would that look like if I'm concerned about gaps in my resume?
Yes. So I have certainly observations as a neutral third party, because again, we're getting feedback from the hiring managers every single day and every single week. It's not a huge concern if someone's had a gap. I would be, as the applicant or the candidate, be ready to talk about, okay, well, why is it? But what have you been doing? The question that's very common is, what have you been doing to stay current with your technology skills? What, maybe you've been doing something, online tutorials, maybe you've been doing personal projects, even if it's not a corporate 9-to-5 paycheck, you're staying fresh in the minds of employers. And again, not only for your own skill set growth, that'll be great, but also employers, how you're being evaluated. If somebody has, as I was preparing for this, Patricia, I was also thinking, if somebody has had gaps in the last few years, like, that's kind of to be expected. Maybe there's a life circumstance. Maybe someone was taking care of a sick family. I mean, that's dark, but I mean, maybe that's been the reality.
Very real, though. Yeah, it's a reality.
Or an office has been closed, or literally caught up in a corporate layoff that had nothing to do. The key phrase is, it had nothing to do with my attitude, performance, attendance. This was literally a numbers game and a financial cut from the company. Like, hiring managers probably assume that going in, but just having crystal clear reasons, that will alleviate that annoying first question. Be ready to address it.
And on the topic too of things that I guess are somewhat dark, I guess, if somebody were to come in and say, no, it was based on my performance, if they're honest and upfront about that, like if there was a gap in the resume because something happened, is that something that you are ready to work with on, or is that something that is a little bit of a red flag and you get a little nervous? Like, how does that work if that is the case for somebody?
I'd say just the honesty about it, but what you've learned from it, most importantly,
Yeah.
or it's like if it was a type of role that maybe you were a good team fit or the manager liked you, but it just wasn't, you weren't cut out for that specific type of role. So I've learned in my career that maybe this type of role will be better for me.
Mm,
The honesty, shorter answers are better than, well, you see, what happened was da 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 da. It just
yeah.
that creates more nervousness than just an upfront straight. And I have other references that can speak for my abilities. Having that, it's that next step. Okay, this happened, but then what?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. That seems to be a key thing too, is even in job hunts, which it's not telling your employer problems at the workplace, it's how you fix those problems that happened at the workplace. That seems to
yeah.
always be the thing to do. And again, great segue on the topic of communication. That's obviously incredibly important, and that honesty and transparency. And you're looking for that kind of passive dialogue with those, candidates. But is there anything else that you're looking for specifically communication wise besides that honesty and transparency?
Those are the two key words, honestly. As
Honestly, yeah.
I say, but the more that we feel someone's being upfront with us as a recruiter,
Right.
then that's going to translate to how they communicate with our clients. And we just don't want major surprises.
Right.
Oh, the recruiter told you it was a layoff. Actually, I was terminated, and this is what happened. It's like, well, just be consistent with that message.
Mm. Okay.
And then that will take people. Honesty is always the best.
Yeah.
But then as far as communication wise, like I'll ask people, okay, there's qualifications, but there's also suitability. Like open up to me about what types of jobs, cultures, like in terms of, I'm not supposed to use the word culture, but like team fit or organizational vibe, if you will,
Right.
or industry sector. Like just be honest with me when we're communicating, even at the beginning. Don't be afraid to hurt my feelings because I'm not like married to each one of my clients. Like if you tell me your preferences beyond just, well, I have this amount of experience doing this and this is my salary requirement and this is where I need to be, and but that other stuff that paints more of a color for us so we can best represent your long-term career interests. So we're talking about what type of dialogue do we want, like but there can be legitimately a very upfront, honest, back and forth communication, and might sound cheesy to some of the listeners here, but it's a partnership. And the way that a good recruiter, speaking of partnering with a recruiter, is that we're going to be in contact with you, not just in the short term, but long term.
Mm.
So if one individual application or interview process goes negatively, let's just say, we'll pick up where we left off and we'll learn from that together. And there's only, it's the only way to learn is by applying and giving things a try. But also that part of that can be better upfront communication and honesty about someone's job search goals.
Yeah. I mean, it's your job. You don't want to have to, fall into something that you don't want to do career-wise.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta be upfront about it. And I think that's a great point. That's
And
great.
one more thing, if you don't mind me,
Go
Patricia,
ahead.
to
Yeah,
tag
go ahead.
along that about the ongoing communication from the candidate end, like proactivity. Like there are a lot of people that we talk to. Going back to identifying a good recruiter, I personally think that there can be a good recruiter at any size of staffing firm. So when I say staffing firm, I mean like a third-party agent that hires for all these companies as opposed to an in-house talent acquisition. But I believe that if they're truly listening to your goals, that have good like rapport with you, and if one job or interview goes negatively, they'll help learn from you, and we'll learn from it and move forward and find a better fit. But the proactive communication and check in with me, hey Charlie, I know we spoke in the fall, you said you might have jobs coming in the new year, I'm just checking in, no pressure, I know you're speaking with a lot of people. You want to find the firm, the staff, the recruiter within the firm. It's all about the recruiter and how they operate and how they support you and how you feel important to them. So try to find firms that don't operate like glorified resume pushing they're like resume pushers, or they almost operate like call centers, like they're rushing you through the process. It's a 5-minute call of no material depth. Try to steer clear of that, and if you encounter it, then just prioritize it accordingly.
Yeah.
So,
Well, how long, should people keep in contact with you, even, or do you still want to hear from people even if they're years into the job that,
of course, Yeah. Hey, you helped me land this job back in 2021. I'm very grateful for those efforts, but here's what's changed. And
Mm,
it's not expected in the tech field that you go and work, maybe prior generations or different sectors. You go work for one place for 20, 30, 40 years, and then you retire. That just doesn't happen, nor is it expected to happen. So, hey, you helped me get me that first level role. I'm actually now at a mid or senior level engineer or admin, system admin type role. Can you help me with the next thing? And that's when it gets exciting because guess what? A side perk of being in tech is the compensation and the rewards and the titles and all
yeah.
that stuff over time is a great perk. So
Yeah.
everybody can benefit from that.
Yeah, and I'm sorry we jumped around our questions a little bit, and thank you, Aaron. Because one of the questions is do you just disappear? Are you gone?
Um,
Like, is that something to be expected or no? Not
yeah,
at all.
I got to be honest. I'm always, yeah, hopefully you guys can already tell and the listeners can tell, like I'm very candid about these topics and what I've observed, what
Mhm.
I've heard from others that have worked with recruiters. But many do. Like many, they'll hire you. It's a set it and forget it. This is uh, the uncomfortable part of it for some people is there's the clients, the end companies that we're representing, they do pay us a finder's fee, and I don't maybe like those exact words, but if once they've been paid to help hire you, and then that you're not important to them anymore. That's not how we operate. That's not how I operate. But there is that out there, and if they ghost you, then prioritize them accordingly.
Yeah.
And you want people that legitimately care about you and have your best, again, long-term career interests in mind, and that
Well,
have you as a they have your back basically.
well, it all goes back to the networking thing too. I mean, Charlie, you seem like the type of person we should keep on our LinkedIn if we've spoken to you before or haven't even spoken to you at all. I feel like that's you're somebody that we'd want to keep in contact with no matter what.
Yeah. And just stay connected with me because you never know down the road something could happen unexpectedly. You thought you've landed your dream job, but then guess what? The new CEO doesn't want any onshore developers. It's like, well,
Yeah.
I gotta call my buddy Charlie, even though I thought I was gonna be safe for a long time. You just never know. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, to backtrack a little bit, before people have landed that job, I guess, in the process of talking to you, and let's say we've finished up what we need, you've checked out my resume, you've done my LinkedIn, now you go to work. As the person, is already spoken to the recruiter, and I'm also on the job hunt,
Yeah.
candidate continue searching
Yep.
on his or her own
Yep. They should.
case.
They should keep working on their looking on their own. It's just that here, I know I'm obviously biased. Like I'm a recruiter, but uh, we're not naive that people have their own sourcing efforts, job seeking efforts.
Mhm.
But sometimes that cold applying on LinkedIn or job boards, they don't get the right return on investment. And with us, you're literally going directly to the hiring manager's inbox.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think the communication, it goes back to communication when we talk about interacting with a recruiter. If you tell me, like, hey, Charlie, I'm just letting you know because we're in the trust zone, right?
Yeah. We're friends.
Yeah, but I'm letting you know I do have a final interview, but the job you recruited me and presented me for, that's the one I really want. And
Yeah.
we can use that to somebody's with approval from the applicant. Can I go to my client and tell them that's the case because I might be able to gently, professionally nudge that client, that company that you really want, versus there's the job that might be immediately available, but it's not ideal. If
Mm.
you tell me that, I'm your third party advocate. Like that's the unique part of working with a recruiter. There's a lot of communication that we can do once we talk to you and it's okay with you. We will use that to your best benefit. It's like go tell the hiring manager, hey John, just so you know, not that he or she's not going to be around forever. This is what's happening. So and so has told me legitimately you're his or her top option. Is there any way we could move that person to the next round within the end of this week? And without a representative recruiter, you're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Or they might not respond in time. Like they'll listen to us. They might not know that person yet. So we already have rapport established with our clients. So that's why it helps working with a recruiter. Sorry, that was just a
No, that
maybe more than you asked, but that's
No, no,
what
no.
I
That
how
actually,
I like.
again,
Mhm.
great
Yeah.
segue. That helps out so much because I do want to really drive home, why do candidates find success in working with recruiters like yourself? Like, and how can that benefit people, but also how do candidates potentially fall short? And again, this is something that we've kind of touched on already, but like just really driving this home for people watching.
Well, let's start with
find success.
yeah, if we don't mind, we can start with the positive, like working with a good recruiter, not just any recruiter. And I'm not naive. I know that I've been recruited in a different part of my career.
Sure.
There are recruiting agencies that just don't operate with the best ethics. But the good ones you want to keep in your virtual Rolodex, save their info, like save my phone number, connect with me on LinkedIn, but we can also negotiate for you as well if it ever comes to those very sensitive, uncomfortable topics. For most, is human nature. If the client, the hiring manager, already knows and trusts us, like, you might be able to get a few thousand, sometimes several thousand more dollars, and that wouldn't be something that most tech people enjoy doing on their own. At least I've found. So that's a huge benefit. We know beyond just the job description, what are the actual keywords that'll help. Like, here's the HR regurgitated job description, right? That it just looks so generic with 10 bullet points. But then we talk to John Smith, the hiring manager, the dev manager. Here's what I really need to see and what I'm not already seeing, so that your applicant doesn't repeat the same wrong steps and present him or herself like to what we don't want, so that you're in the maybe pile, but the maybe pile of applicants becomes the no pile. We want to make you in the yes pile. You can't say no to this candidate. Yeah. And then that's the other benefit. We will tell you that and speak up before we even present the resume. Why do candidates fall short? That one's hard to answer. They give one-word answers, or they don't open up to us, or they're unwilling to work with us on a resume. The mentality, maybe there can be sometimes, I don't want to offend, but sometimes it can be an attitude thing. Like, if they can't tell that I'm good for I hear this every single week, at least maybe every 2 days. If they can't tell that I'm qualified for my resume, they're not worth my salt, or they're not worth my time. And so that is troublesome in a competitive job market when you want to stand out. If you're not willing to work with us,
yeah.
What goes secretly through our mind as recruiters is if that's a mentality thing from day one, what's it going to be like once you land the job? And it can be just a tip of the iceberg. And maybe that's an unfair snap judgment I've made, but I've done this enough years where attitude is not to be overlooked, and soft skills are not to be overlooked.
We love
and unwilling to meet with us. I do a phone intake call with all my applicants, and then I say, hey, this is optional, but can we do literally like a 10-minute Microsoft Teams or Zoom meeting, just so that we make sure that I know your goals? What do you say?
I can say hi and show you I'm a real person.
I want people that I'm representing to know I'm a real person and that I'm genuine about this. But people that refuse to do that or don't see any value in the relationship, then they might fall short and they might get unfairly skipped over, even though they're a great candidate. So giving details with answer to questions we answer, being willing to work with the resume, consistent communication, follow-up, good attitude, presenting him or herself as a lifetime learner, being open to certain technologies, like being open to certain companies, even if they aren't in your dream. I hear often, oh, I only want to work for a renewable energy company. I only want to work for a nonprofit. It's like, okay, there's these ideals, but then there's what's going to get you an intro into tech. Maybe you don't be so choosy, and maybe you open yourself up to something that on paper might be something you would have naturally skipped over. But again, a recruiter might say, hey, totally get that. That's totally valid. We will look for that. But here's what's available in the meantime. Do you even want to be considered? I'm not saying, will you accept this job? But maybe you could at least talk to them. I can't tell you how many times I've done that through the years. And they're like, Charlie, you were right. I landed that job. I was so grateful. And maybe at the worst case, it's a stair step that helps you build. And any opportunity and experience is good experience.
Keep an open mind about it. I mean, that's
keep an open mind, well phrased. Yeah.
Yeah. And this microphone's great, but I'm sure, I don't know if you guys can hear it. My poor cats are just screaming at the door. So if that's been going on the whole time, I apologize. It's quite distracting. I'm trying to stay so focused, but just keep hearing me out. So keeping an open mind is great, but that's one of our most frequently asked questions on our Facebook page, of course. If people are kind of new to IT or new to the tech industry in general, and they see this My Computer Career thing pop up on their computer, first question might be like, well, what kind of job can I get? Like, what am I going to get out of this? And my response, it sounds so like open, but I'm always like, I don't know. Like, you could find something you didn't even know existed. Like, the tech industry itself is so broad. There's so many different jobs. There's so many new jobs coming out, especially with all, whether it's cloud, whether it's AI, something like this stuff like people haven't even heard of, right? So keeping an open mind is something that I'm definitely going to start using in my phrasing, but that's good. That's definitely something that you want your clients to see, but also, wanting the job, putting the effort in, and like working with you on, like, this is like the partnership, right, that you talked about, like wanting to make sure that we're both working for your success type of thing.
And I'd argue that, or I would also state that everybody's basically in tech now.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's tech adjacent, like digital marketing, like certain product design roles, certain project or program, but it's basically all tech now. So, and like you said, there's so many different avenues and career paths, and we're here for all of that. Yeah.
Got it. And I actually had a question. I don't think it popped up on our feed for some reason, and that can happen. I apologize, folks. But this kind of goes back to what we were talking about as far as LinkedIn. From Bruce, who works with our marketing team here, head of marketing, he said, what do recruiters look for on LinkedIn? Like, what are the specifics? Do they look for anything beyond the basic work history? Do recommendations have value? Do they look for posts? Like, is that also something that you're taking into account? Like, what is this person posting about?
Okay. Yeah, don't post and like a bunch of negative things. Like, everybody can see that as public info. A picture. Looking at a camera, a picture, an easy tagline. I help people get tech jobs in Portland and nationally at VanderHowen.
Okay.
Nobody has to be Mr. or Mrs. Congeniality. Have a succinct, easy to follow about section. Make it easy for us to find you. If you're open to work, put that little, circle on the page. It is not your resume. It's not the formal resume document where you have 5 to 7 bullet points per job, but do put something instead of talk about where candidates fall short. They literally just list job titles and dates, and then we have to try to intuit everything else, because odds are the first place that we found you is your LinkedIn. So make yourself keyword searchable. Again, another podcast episode I have is just dedicated to LinkedIn.
Sweet.
So people can see that, and I know you'll be sharing that out. So yeah.
I love that. Okay, cool. So, I mean, that's a thing too, on the topic of resumes as well. Like, do I have to put everything on there? Do I have to, but it sounds like LinkedIn is the nice, like, clean cut version of that. It's what is necessary. And there might be a little bit more to it, but you see what you need to see.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be as detailed as the resume, but you should have some color and some insight and be searchable and targeted. And don't view LinkedIn as a glorified social media feed, which I do hear often, and they roll their eyes at it. And whether we like it or not, it is being used for direct candidate vetting. So,
okay. I do have a question for you, and I'm sorry it wasn't on the prepared list of questions, I guess, but I recently did an article review video on this as well. There's been a kind of a back and forth with the idea of cover letters. Are cover letters out? Are they still?
Cover letters are out.
Mainly. They're out, gone?
You want cover letters to be that info? Well, I have a lot of thoughts about cover letters, as you might, but you want that info to be reflected in your resume. Another click, another document, and there's so many of them. 95% of them are just cut and paste generic anyway. But it's just as outdated as resumes available upon request and writing a career objective. Just don't do that. It dates yourself.
Okay.
Or the 1-page resume rule, by the way, if you don't mind me interjecting, that's not a rule.
Wow. I love it. Okay.
Not a rule. I get so passionate about some of these topics, but because the only reason is because what we've seen, what works and what doesn't work. So, yeah.
Interesting. All right. I've always been scared to put more than 1 page.
Yeah. If somebody's literally brand new to tech, then yes. But as soon as someone adds a year or more, nope, 1.5, 2 page, like that's the industry. How to show the tech progression.
Okay.
And what you've done, not just what tools you've used, but what have you done with them, how you've advanced. Like, there's reasons why. I can go into it, but again, there's a whole other podcast episode that I have
What to
on
say, yeah.
Spotify.
I
So
feel like this needs to be just a podcast episode rant.
there we go. It's fine if it is, right? I mean, hopefully the audience can tell that this is just off the cuff. I haven't like formally rehearsed every single one of these answers, but I'm just trying to candidly give you all the most well-rounded, all-encompassing, objective
That's
feedback
perfect.
that I receive all the time.
That's perfect. We love that. We absolutely love that. And I guess the only question that we probably touched on it a little bit, but as far as specifics go when working with a recruiter, what exactly does, okay, I'm the candidate, we did everything, I got the job that you and I were both working towards in this partnership, and it's all good. How does that handoff look? Is there like a fruit basket involved? Like,
oh yeah,
what does that look like?
If you're in my local footprint, we usually do a coffee or a lunch once you're on the job for about a month, so that there's actually material stuff to talk about. If somebody's not local, then we do like a virtual coffee. But the day one check-in, like, hey, are you logged in? Like, do you have access? Did you get your laptop? Like, we're constantly checking in with the person. And then week one, hey, did you submit your timesheet? Or like if it's a contract job, but we hire permanent employees a lot too. So day one, week one check-in, 1 month check-in. Often we try to do that in person. Then like every few months or every 6 months or a year, like, hey, I'm just checking in. No worries if it's just business as usual. But in tech, we know that there often needs to be pivots. Mm-hmm. And so, no, I mean, one of the topics that gets me a little bit charged up is do recruiters just disappear? Like, heck, no, not if they're doing it right. Not if they care about you. And so just go to those people that treat you as a person and not just like a product or an output.
Right. Okay, so we finally got to the bottom of the regional answer, folks. It's because you might get a coffee out of it. All right. And I don't know about you.
And it's all free and lunches, and you can, do surf and turf and take some home for your kids. We don't care. You'll expense it, but we're not trying to just wine and dine people, but
kidding, yeah.
A free lunch or a coffee, like it is a nice touch. I think people respect that.
So. Oh yeah, absolutely. So I wasn't too far off from the fruit basket, but that is good too, though. That's something I didn't really even consider as well, is you not only keeping up with making sure that like they got into their email, they got their laptop, they're submitting their timesheet. Like that's something that people might need the push on to make sure that they're doing it correctly, or also just shows that you care. Like, hey, we're still here, we're still willing to help. Like, and the pivot stuff too. Like, is there anything that isn't really work? Is that kind of like where the pivot stuff comes in, where you're like, this really isn't working in this section? This really, is that kind of where that?
This isn't working. I'm going to give it my absolute best effort for 6 months to a year. But Charlie, can you start confidentially lining up other opportunities for me? We're not going to actively poach out of our clients because that's obviously unethical. But if something unexpected happens and maybe they all of a sudden have a required fully 9 to 5 return to office, like not many people in tech want to do that, right? So can you find me a more flexible, accommodative work schedule? Like that's pretty easy to explain to the next employer too, as we start searching.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. With the last question was something we already answered. Does the recruiter essentially disappear? And you heard it here first. Charlie will not.
I won't. And or another thing that someone might need to pivot down the road is like a company's literally changing their entire tech stack or a new language or framework. Like that's not what I want to do. That's not what I studied. So that's easy to explain to the next employer. It's like the stuff where it's like, nah, I think I'm good. I just want to leave. And in the minds of employers, you're like, yeah, you're just a job hopping for a higher paycheck. Like you want to have the understandable, justifiable core reasons that make sense in the eyes of employers so that they think that you'll stick around for years as well. So we help and coach packaging and communication and career goals for each candidate on a case-by-case basis.
And I'm seeing here, did I ask this already? Aaron was putting this in our banner here. Do you do cold outreach to potential candidates? And Aaron may or may not be asking because he's never had success working with recruiters who blindly reach out to him. Is that something that we touched on, or?
Well, I would say if you can tell from that LinkedIn recruiter message that it's just like, you can just tell this has been spammed to 1,000 people that they don't even know that it's like, like someone's a software architect and they're getting an IT support job in Miami, Florida. It's like, you didn't look at my profile at all. Like, just reject, because they're not putting any thought into that. You should be able to tell from the tone, and I always personalize my messages, but it's one thing for your recruiter vetting, whether you want to engage with them or not.
I think recruiter or not, everybody at one point has gotten some sort of spammy email that says hello, and in brackets it says insert name.
Oh, it's so bad. Yeah, that's so bad. That's so cringe.
It is. It really is.
They don't care about you that much. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Dante, I see your question over on Facebook about the Cyber Warrior program. Let's connect. I think Aaron might be already doing it, but let's connect off of the live, because I do want to answer that. Yeah, if you want to send a note to public relations at mycomputercareer.edu, we can help you out and figure that out for you. But no worries if it's off topic. Please ask us questions, and if we can't answer it during the live, that's totally fine. We will connect off live. All right, what did I miss? Did I miss anything?
I think we captured, as I'm thinking about how do you work with a recruiter, I think we captured most of how to do it, how not to do it, what to be aware of as somebody who wants a tech job, how to utilize the partnership to your benefit. Like, that's what a good recruiter is trying to do for you. Yeah,
absolutely. And while I guess I have everybody on the live, I do want to mention too, give a shout out to our career services team. If you are watching this and you are either a student or a graduate and you graduated however long ago, whether it's a week or 2 years, always friendly reminder that the career services team is here for you and helping you find your next steps. Like that's something that we offer. That's something that makes us stand out from the rest. So definitely, if you need those links, I'm sure Aaron will put those in there. It's on our alumni page, but if you need any assistance, let us know. And again, Charlie, he was so gracious to, the good folks over at VanderHowen. Charlie, if you have any questions for him, that there's ways to connect, listen to his podcast, please do that. As you heard, they cover pretty much everything that we were covering here on the podcast episodes too, which is great. And LinkedIn as well. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. I think that is.
It's right at the top of my LinkedIn page, where it's a link to the Spotify, and then there's several episodes of just me talking for like 20 minutes, which eventually you tire of hearing about that. But then I bring in tech professionals that I've hired through the last, decade plus. Yeah. And that's where what they've learned, what they wish they would have learned earlier in their tech career, like that's where I think this audience, you get even more color from those episodes and value out of those. But it's all out there for reasons, and it's based on experience. So
absolutely. Charlie, thank you as always. Can't wait to have you back on. Again, check out the Spotify podcast, everybody. And then if you have any questions, even though the live is ended, we will see them and we will direct them where we need to direct them. But thanks again, Charlie. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully it's not too cold up there.
You too. No, it's actually somewhat mild for normal. No ice storm this year.
Well, yeah, I still have snow on the ground over here in North Carolina, which is shocking. But I think next week at one point the low is going to be 18, which I don't know how I feel about that.
Wow. Yeah.
Yay. All right. If you don't mind hanging out, Charlie, and then we're going to go ahead and end the live. Thank you guys again. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekends. Stay warm, I guess, if you're in colder climates, and have a great one. Bye.